Welcome, everyone. Let's dig into listening step 4. It's all about really understanding why someone is communicating with you. It's like figuring out the purpose behind
Mm,
someone's words.
so we're talking about tuning into others' messages, right? Not just hearing the words, but really grasping the intentions behind them?
Exactly. It's about identifying the purpose behind the communication. You see, the step breaks down into knowing the key reasons why people communicate. To share information, to express opinions, to convey feelings, to request help, even to
Right,
build
got it.
relationships or give instructions.
And what's interesting is that each of these reasons, whether it's providing instructions or boosting someone's morale, has specific cues. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. For example, when someone is sharing information, they might start with, "Did you know?" or use like factual language. Whereas if they're sharing an opinion, they'll likely say, "I think that," or "in my opinion." It's a bit like deciphering different dialects of communication.
Mm,
And then there's when folks express feelings, they might say, "I feel," and use a lot of emotionally charged words, right? It's not just about the facts, but the
yeah.
emotional layer behind them.
What about the reasons that involve requesting something or building relationships?
Great question. For requests, people tend to have a more urgent tone sometimes, and it might come off that saying no is easier. So they're kind of testing the waters. And when someone wants to learn about you or build a relationship, they'll sprinkle in personal details and ask related questions.
Exactly. It almost sounds like there's a kind of roadmap in every interaction, guiding us to understand what's really being asked for or shared.
Right, it's like a map of intentions. And what's cool is that understanding this purpose helps you process the conversation better, so you're not caught off guard. For instance, if you mistake an instruction for just a casual comment, you might not act appropriately later.
Now, doesn't that open up room for misunderstanding? I mean, what if someone's purpose is ambiguous?
Absolutely. And that's why the material emphasizes knowing why it matters. If you misinterpret the message, say, thinking someone is simply sharing information when they're actually giving instructions, you could miss a key call to action. It's critical to be prepared, like having the right gear before a hike.
Yeah, totally.
They even lay out some signs to watch for. For instance, if someone is presenting factual "did you know" statements, they're often sharing information. Meanwhile, more emotionally laden language implies they're expressing feelings.
It's amazing when you think about it. Even a slight change in phrasing can uh, completely shift the meaning behind the conversation.
Exactly, and that subtle shift is what makes active listening so key. You have to be attuned to the nuances in how someone's speaking. It's not just about the words, but the delivery and context.
Some might argue, though, isn't it a bit too simplistic to just match phrases to purposes? I mean, human communication is often messy.
That's a valid point. Communication is like layered and sometimes messy, but these guidelines are more like building blocks to start with. Once you're aware of these cues, you can refine your understanding further with experience.
Right, makes sense.
And there's also a teaching component. For instance, learners can listen to different examples and match them with the right communication purpose, a kind of a practical exercise to solidify the concept.
So, in the classroom or even in everyday interactions, you could pinpoint if someone is, say, encouraging you versus giving instructions.
Yes, exactly. The idea is that by being attentive to these signs, such as verbs and adjectives in their speech, you're better equipped to respond appropriately. Plus, regular practice, like reflection questions, helps reinforce this
Yep,
skill
I
over
like that.
time. The reflection questions really drive it home. They prompt us to think, why do I communicate and why is it important to know the other person's purpose? It's like um, a mirror for our own interactions.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And what about the assessment part? How does one ensure they've really grasped the purpose behind communication?
Great question. One method mentioned is a matching exercise where learners link what they heard with the perceived communication purpose, or even better, they create their own examples of diverse communication styles. This not only tests understanding, but also encourages them to think critically.
That's smart.
It's really about, constantly practicing and reflecting in real time. Teachers might, for example, ask after a lesson, "What do you think the purpose behind that particular message was?" thereby continuously reinforcing this active listening strategy.
Yeah, it sounds like a proactive approach to communication. Now I'm thinking, what would be some challenges? Are some purposes harder to discern than others?
Definitely, some purposes are trickier. For instance, when a message combines multiple intentions, like sharing information while also subtly asking for help, it can be challenging to pinpoint the dominant motivation. It's like trying to pick out the flavor in a complex dish.
Right, I get that. And if you miss one nuance, it could lead to, say, misinterpreting instructions as mere opinions, right?
Exactly, and that's where the risk lies. Misunderstanding the purpose behind communication might leave you unprepared to effectively respond. It underlines why it's so important to be both observant and reflective.
Definitely.
All in all, this step really pushes for a deeper vision of listening, where you're not just absorbing sounds, but truly piecing together the intent. And that's a game changer in both
Absolutely, really
personal and
transformative
professional
stuff.
settings.
So to wrap up, it's not just about hearing words, but about digging into why they're being said. That's a powerful tool for connection and understanding,
Precisely. And with practice, those subtle cues become more natural to spot. It's like becoming fluent in the language of intent.
right? And that can really elevate how we interact every day.
So, next time you're in a conversation, remember to tune into these cues, whether it's the factual tone indicating information, the emotional language showing feelings, or the direct approach signaling instructions. It all forms the bigger picture of communication.
That's a solid takeaway. And hey, even though it might seem a bit methodical at first, it's an effective approach, especially when you consider that our interactions often blend multiple purposes at once.
Absolutely, it's definitely a learning process. And once you get in the groove, the benefits in clarity and response are immense. It's like unlocking a new level in conversational skills.
Yeah, really unlocking.
That's our deep dive into listening step 4, figuring out why others communicate with us. It reinforces that active, thoughtful listening is key to meaningful dialogue.
Indeed, thanks for this engaging conversation.